The knife flashed once in the kitchen light, then again and again. Claire Matthews, 40, had come home early from work in Pennsylvania to surprise her boyfriend. She had giggled at the front door, a bag of cupcakes swinging at her side. But inside she found him with another woman on the couch. The surprise turned into a scream. He pushed the other woman toward the back door, and then he turned on Claire. In the tight space by the sink, he stabbed her. Fast, wild, counting meant nothing, until there were so many wounds the floor looked like a Red Sea. Somewhere between the 10th and the 20th strike, Claire tried to crawl. Somewhere between the 50th and the 70th, she reached for her phone. On the 86th stab, the blade slipped from his hand and clattered on the tile. Outside, a neighbor's porch camera caught a shadow rushing away. Inside, Claire's hand twitched toward the phone one last time as a dark shape leaned over her. Would she live long enough to speak? The morning started slow, the kind of slow that makes you think nothing bad can happen. Claire poured coffee into a travel cup and drew a little heart on it with a marker for herself. She grabbed a sweater because the office air conditioner always felt too cold. She sent a text to her best friend, Nina. He's been distant. Maybe it's me. Nina wrote back, "It's not you. Come over tonight." Claire typed, "Maybe I'll surprise him after work. Then we'll see." She added a smile face as if a small emoji could hold a whole fear. Claire worked a small insurance office in a town where people waved at stop signs, and the diner still called everyone honey. She sat at a desk by the window. From there, she could see the small park where kids chase each other around the swings. She liked that view. It let her pretend everything in life could be as simple as kids running and laughing. Normal was important to her. She kept a neat purse. She kept receipts in a zip pouch. She kept a calendar where she wrote down haircuts, dentist visits, and notes like, "Bring soup to Mrs. Hall." People at work liked her because she was steady. They said she had a mom voice. Maybe that is why she was the one who answered the phones when angry callers needed a calm word. But under that calm, worry sat like a stone in her pocket. Her boyfriend, Jason Reed, had been strange all week. He had stopped sending the little messages that made her smile. He said work was busy. He said his phone battery died all the time. He said she was overthinking. Last night, when she asked if they were okay, he had laughed and kissed her forehead, the way you pat a dog on the head when it asks for attention. Claire didn't want to be the crazy girlfriend. She told herself good things. She reminded herself of the trip they planned to the Poconos in the fall, the new set of dishes they picked out at the store, the way he had cried when she got sick last winter and stayed by her bed. People are complicated, Nina always said. Give him room. But giving him room felt like sitting alone in a house that slowly went dark. At noon, the office shared a birthday cake for a coworker. Claire ate a small slice and laughed with the others. Somebody made a joke about the copier. Someone else talked about a cousin's wedding where the DJ messed up the first dance song. Claire smiled and tucked away the laughter like a coin. It would be nice to bring that lightness home. Maybe a surprise would reset whatever had been out of shape. Around 2, an email came from her boss asking for some reports. The numbers were simple. Claire could do them in her sleep. But as she stared at the screen, the numbers blurred and her chest tightened. She needed air. She stood, walked to the bathroom, and washed her hands too long. When she looked up, her face in the mirror looked tired but brave. She put a hand on her belly and said, "You got this." She had lied before, small, silly lies like saying she loved broccoli at a friend's house when she didn't. But faking an illness to leave work early felt bigger. Still, the idea grew. She could leave at 3, pick up cupcakes from the bakery Jason liked, and reach his place by 3:30. If she caught him at home, they could fix it. If he wasn't home, well, at least she would know. She went to her boss's door and knocked. "I think I'm coming down with something," she said. "Stomach." She looked down and let her voice wobble just a little. "Can I go lie down? I'll make up the hours." Her boss, Mrs. Dunn, looked over her glasses. "Please go home. Claire, rest. We can handle the reports." It was kindness, and it made Claire feel both guilty and relieved. She grabbed her sweater, her purse, and her steady breath, and she left. Outside, The afternoon was bright and ordinary. A dog barked at a mail carrier. Birds picked at the crumbs near the diner. Claire turned her car toward the bakery. As she drove, she told herself a story about the evening. She would walk in the door and say, "Surprise!" Jason would laugh and open his arms. They would sit on the couch and eat cupcakes and talk about nothing until the talk about everything felt easy again. At the bakery, she picked 2 red velvet and 2 vanilla with sprinkles. The young woman at the counter boxed them carefully and tied the box with a string. "Big night?" the woman asked, cheerful and harmless. "I hope so," Claire said. On the drive to Jason's place, Claire passed the park again. A little boy pushed a smaller girl on a swing. The girl's feet kicked high. The boy yelled, "Higher!" Claire smiled. She thought about how good it felt when someone cheered you on. She wished for that kind of simple love, the kind without tests or games. She turned onto Jason Street, a row of townhouses with small porches and welcome mats that said things like "Home Sweet Home" and "Wipe Your Paws." She parked and checked her hair in the mirror. She drew a little heart with her finger on the fog glass, then wiped it away. Feeling silly, she grabbed the cupcakes. On the porch, she paused. She pictured his face when he saw her. She pictured the way his arms would feel when he pulled her in close. She knocked softly, and then, because she had a key, she let herself in. The quiet hit her first. Not the quiet of an empty room, but a held-breath quiet, like a secret hiding. She set the cupcake box on the small table by the door. "Jason," she called, light playful. "Guess who got out of work early?" She stepped into the living room. There they were, Jason and a woman she had never seen, her hair messy, her shirt half buttoned, his hands on her waist. The woman's eyes jumped wide. Jason's face froze, then changed fast, as if he picked a mask and put on. He stepped away from the woman and held up his hands. "Claire, hey, this isn't..." "It isn't what?" Claire asked. Her voice did not sound like hers. It sounded thin and far away. She backed up a step. The cupcake box slid and hit the floor. A red velvet cake rolled out and hit the rug. The woman grabbed her purse from the couch and looked at Jason. "I'm leaving," she said. She moved past Claire, not meeting her eyes. On the way out, she brushed the table. The little ceramic bowl with Jason's keys inside clinked. Claire's heart pounded so hard she could feel in her ears. She thought of 1,000 things at once. The silly heart drawn on the mirror, the boss's kind eyes, the boy and the girl at the park, the trips and promises and little lies. She wondered which moment was the one that led here. "Claire," Jason said again, now moving toward her. "You shouldn't have just come in. You can't just..." "Can't just what?" she said. "Be your girlfriend? Be honest? Be here." Tears stung, and she hated that they did. She wanted to keep her voice strong, but it broke like a small branch. "How long?" Jason's jaw worked. He looked like a man balancing everything on a finger and watching it wobble. "It's complicated," he said. "You make it so intense. You always think the worst." "I thought the best," she said, and heard her voice steady. "I thought the best of you." Maybe they had sat down then. If he had said sorry and meant it, if he had cried and put his face in his hands, the next hour would have been different. Maybe, but the air in the room had changed. It was sharp now. It was full of edges. Jason moved toward the kitchen. "I need water," he muttered. It sounded like a line he gave himself to break the moment. He went behind the counter, opened a drawer, closed it, opened another. Claire didn't follow. She picked up her phone to text Nina. Her hands shook. She tried to type, "You were right." Her fingers at the wrong letters, and the message turned into nonsense. She sighed and wiped her eyes with her wrist. Jason came back with the water. He set the glass down hard. "You pushed me to this," he said. "You don't trust me. You never trust me." The words were old words. They were the kind people throw like stones when they want to hurt, without thinking. Claire heard them and felt something inside her go quiet. Not weak quiet, like a lake when the wind stops. She looked at him and said, "I trusted you with my heart, with my time, with my home. You broke that." For a second, it seemed like he might soften. His eyes moved. searching for a script that would make things easy. But the other woman's perfume still hung the room, sweet and heavy. He glanced at the door at the fallen cupcake, at Claire's phone in her hand. Panic or pride or both flooded his face. "Put the phone down," he said. "I'm calling Nina," Claire said. "I'm going to leave. We can talk later." He reached for her wrist. It was fast and clumsy. She pulled back. His jaw clenched. In the same breath, his hand shot out again, harder. The glass tipped. Water ran across the counter and dripped on the floor. The drip, drip, drip was too loud. He went for the drawer. He grabbed a knife. It was the kind you use for chopping onions or carving a turkey. Claire's mind could not match the picture with sense. This is silly, she thought. This is a scare. He would put it down and then, later, they would tell the story. We were such fools. We were so angry. We were lucky. She stepped back, palms up. "Jason, stop." His face was red now, his eyes hot and lost. "You ruin everything," he spat. "You always do." He came around the counter. The first stab hit her arm. It burned cold. The second hit her side. She gasped. Time tore. The world narrowed to a bright circle and a dark one. She moved. He moved. The room became a tight box where pain and fear bounced off the walls. Neighbors later would say they heard thuds. They would say it sounded like furniture moving. They would say they didn't think much of it because the walls were thin and people fight. People always fight. Claire saw the back door and tried to run. Her hand hit the knob and slipped. He pulled her back and they both fell. She felt the floor slam her shoulder. The knife rose and fell. She tried to say his name, but her mouth wouldn't work right. She tried to crawl toward the hallway, where her purse lay open, where her keys glinted like tiny moons. At some point, she remembered the little kids in the park and thought, please, not like this, not in a world where children swing and laugh. At some point, she thought of Nina's text, of the small home she kept neat, of the steady phone voice she used for strangers. She thought of how it feels when people do not believe you, when they say you're too much, too intense, too worried. The pain roared, then thinned. The blade rose and fell again until the number 86 would be written later in black ink on a white page in an evidence file. The kind of number that makes even hard police officers close their eyes. Outside, a neighbor's porch camera faced the street. It did not see inside. It saw only a blur when a woman, buttoning her shirt with shaking hands, rushed away. It saw her face turn once toward the door before she ran. Inside, the last it slowed. The knife clanged and spun on the tile. Jason stood shaking. His chest heaved. His hands were wet, and the sink handle slipped when he grabbed it. He looked around the room as if the walls could tell him what to do. The world was both too loud and too quiet. Claire lay on the floor. Her phone lay inches away. Its screen lit with Nina's name because she had tried to call, because even the worst moment she had reached for a friend. Her finger touched the glass. The call did not go through. The phone buzzed with a voicemail icon, and then went dark. Sirens were not yet there. The neighbor across the hall opened the door a crack, then closed it, her hand to her mouth. She told herself she would check again in a minute. She told herself not to be rude, not to pry. She told herself a lot of things we tell ourselves when we are scared and want to be polite. The kitchen clock ticked. The water pooled under the counter and made a small lake that touched Claire's hair. In that small, soft sound, life held on tight. Jason stepped back, then forward, then back again. He looked at the knife on the floor, then at the door, then at Claire. He whispered, "Look what you made me do," as if blame could hide him from the truth. He took a breath and reached for the handle of the back door. Somewhere, far off, a siren finally began to wail. Claire's eyes fluttered. Her lips moved, but no sound came. The front doorknob turned. The front door swung open, and the air changed. Detective Laura Bennett had been in law enforcement for almost 2 decades, but she could tell within a second of crossing a threshold whether she was walking into a robbery, a domestic disturbance, or something far worse. The smell hit her first, metallic, sharp, mixed with the faint sweetness of vanilla frosting. The paramedics rushed past her toward the kitchen. Laura's partner, Detective Mike Rizzo, came in behind her, his notepad already in his hand. "What do we got?" Mike asked. A uniformed officer near the door shook his head. "Neighbor called 911. Said she heard yelling, maybe fighting, about 10 minutes ago. Didn't see much. When we got here, door was unlocked. Found the victim in the kitchen. Female, mid-40s, multiple stab wounds. She's still alive, barely. Alive." That word was like a thread in the dark for Laura. She followed the sound of the paramedics' urgent voices. Claire lay on the floor, her clothes soaked through, her hand inches from a darkened phone. The tile was smeared with red, her skin pale as paper. One of the medics was pressing gauze into a deep wound in her side, while the other started in 4. "How many?" Laura asked quietly. The medic didn't look up. "Too many to count right now." Laura scanned the scene. The cupcake box lay open on the floor, one cake smashed against the baseboard. The water from an overturned glass ran in a thin stream toward the fridge. On the counter, drawers hung open, their contents scattered, scissors, bottle openers, and one empty knife block slot. The back door was ajar. "Perimeter," Laura ordered, and a uniform hustled outside. Mike crouched near the counter. "No forced entry," he said. She knew whoever did this, and they didn't come to rob the place. No valuables gone. Laura nodded, her eyes catching on a small smear of blood along the edge of the drawer. It wasn't from the spray. It was a clean swipe, like a hand had grabbed it. "Give me fingerprints on that," she said. One of the paramedics looked up. "We need to move her now." As they lifted Claire onto the stretcher, Laura leaned close. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Claire's eyelids fluttered. Her lips parted, but the words were lost in the oxygen mask. Laura wanted to tell her it was going to be okay, but she'd learned not to promise things she couldn't control. Instead, she said, "We'll find him." As the paramedics wheeled Claire out, Laura followed them onto the porch. A few neighbors had gathered, whispering, eyes wide. One woman, middle-aged, wearing a robe, hugged herself tightly. Laura walked over. "Did you see anything?" she asked. The woman shook her head, then hesitated. "I heard a woman's voice, crying, then a man yelling, and footsteps, fast ones, going out the back." "Anyone else?" The woman glanced toward her door. "My porch camera faces the street. It didn't see inside, but maybe it caught something." Laura's heart kicked. "I'll need that footage." Back inside, Mike met her in the kitchen. Blood trail out the back, leads toward the alley. Footprints, too. Size looks like a man's, maybe size 11. No sign of the weapon yet. Laura looked at the mess in front of her. The scattered utensils, the dropped cupcakes, the half-empty glass of water. Something about it all felt sudden, unplanned, like a switch had been flipped. She tapped her pen against her notepad. This wasn't a break-in. This wasn't random. This was personal. Mike frowned. Personal enough to stab someone this many times? That's rage, Laura. That's hate. Or betrayal, she said. They worked the scene for another hour. Crime scene techs photographed every stain, every crumb of cake. The phone by Claire's hand was bagged for evidence. When the tech read the last text thread aloud, messages to someone named Nina, Laura made a note. Outside, the ambulance had already gone. Claire was at St. Luke's Hospital now, fighting for her life. Laura closed her notebook. We start with her circle. Friends, co-workers, family. Anyone who might know who'd want her dead. Mike nodded. And if she pulls through, she's our best witness. Laura didn't say what they were both thinking. If Claire pulled through. Back at the station, they loaded the neighbor's porch camera footage. The grainy video showed a woman running from the townhouse, fixing her shirt. Seconds later, a tall man in a dark hoodie slipped out the back door and down the alley, his head low. Laura froze the frame. Give me a still. Someone's going to know him. But before she could even print it, the hospital called. Claire was in surgery. She had lost so much blood that the doctors weren't sure if she'd survive the night. And if she didn't, the only person who could name the man in that hoodie would be gone forever. The call from the hospital came at 3:17 a.m. Detective Laura Bennett had been staring at the still frame of the man in the hoodie for so long that her eyes burned. When the phone rang, she already knew the number. It was St. Luke's. Her stomach tightened. "She's still with us," the doctor said, his voice clipped with exhaustion. "We got her through surgery, but she's in critical condition. She's sedated and on a ventilator. You won't get a statement tonight." "Tonight?" Laura echoed. The doctor hesitated. "Or maybe ever. You need to understand. Her injuries are severe. 86 stab wounds. We repair what we can, but she's on a very thin line." Laura closed her eyes. "Call me the moment she's able to speak." She hung up and turned to Mike, who was leaning against his desk with a coffee in hand. "She's alive, but barely. No interview." Mike rubbed his jaw. "Then we focus on the people who can talk." "Who's first?" Laura looked at her list. Nina, by mid-morning. They were knocking on the door of a small apartment complex on East Cherry Street. A woman in her 30s opened the door, her hair pulled back, eyes red from crying. "You the detectives?" she asked. "Yes," Laura said gently. "Nina, we need to talk about Claire." Nina stepped aside, and they entered a cozy but cluttered living room. A half-finished knitting project sat on the couch. A coffee table was covered in tissues, and a cold mug of tea. "I knew something was wrong," Nina said, sitting down. "She texted me yesterday about Jason, said he'd been distant. I told her to trust her gut." Her voice cracked. "And she did." Laura leaned forward. "Tell us about Jason." "He's charming when he wants to be," Nina said. "But I never trusted him. He had this way of turning things around on Claire. If she called him out on something, suddenly she was the problem. Gaslighting, that's what it is." Mike scribbled in his notebook. "You know where Jason lives?" Nina nodded. "Townhouse over on Maple Lane. Claire had a key. That's probably how she got in yesterday." "Anyone else in Jason's life we should know about?" "Friends, ex-girlfriends." Nina hesitated. "There was one woman, blonde. I saw her once picking Jason up after work when his car was in the shop. He told Claire it was his co-worker. I didn't believe it." Laura's pen paused over her notebook. "Could that have been the woman in his house yesterday?" Nina's eyes widened. "You saw her?" "In the porch camera footage," Laura said. "She left just before the attack." Nina swallowed hard. "Then she knows something. Maybe she's even involved." Back at the station, Laura and Mike ran Jason Reed's name. He had no felony record, but there were 2 prior reports for domestic disturbances, both dismissed when complainant declined to cooperate. Laura felt the heat rising in her chest. "Pattern," she muttered. They pulled up his driver's license photo. "Same height and build as the man in the hoodie." "Let's pay him a visit," Mike said. Jason's townhouse looked normal from the outside. Potted plant by the door, a welcome mat that said "Life is sweet." But when he opened the door, the smell of bleach hit them like a wall. "Detectives," he said, smiling faintly. "What's this about?" Laura's eyes swept over his shoulder. The kitchen counters gleamed. "Too much. We're investigating an incident involving Claire Matthews." Jason's brow furrowed. "Claire? Is she okay?" "She's in the hospital," Laura said flatly. "Multiple stab wounds. She was found in your kitchen." His eyes flickered, just for a second, but he kept his voice smooth. "That's terrible. But I wasn't here. I was out last night." Mike stepped in. "Where?" Jason leaned against the doorframe. "With a friend." "What friend?" Laura asked. "Melissa." He smiled. "You can ask her." "We will," Laura said. "What's her last name?" He hesitated just long enough to confirm he was picking a lie. "Carter." Laura made a note. "And where's the knife that's missing from your block?" His smile faltered. "I have no idea." When they got back to the car, Mike blew out a breath. He's lying through his teeth. "Yep," Laura said. "And I'm betting Melissa Carter either doesn't exist or she's the blonde from the footage." Mike looked at her. "You think she'll talk?" Laura started the engine. "She's the key. And if she's scared of him, we need to get to her before he does." Laura started the engine. "She's the key. And if she's scared of him, we need to get to her before he does." But as they drove away, Laura's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered, and a woman's voice came through, shaky and urgent. "Detective Bennett? My name's Melissa. I think I was in the house right before Claire was attacked, and I need to tell you something." Melissa Carter's voice trembled through the phone. "I can't talk here. He might hear me. Can we meet somewhere public?" Laura kept her tone steady. "Name the place." "Maple Cafe. 30 minutes. Laura and Mike exchanged a look. Public was good. Less chance Jason would try to interfere. But if Melissa was truly scared, that meant Jason knew she could sink him. The Maple Cafe was a small corner diner with a cracked neon sign and the smell of frying bacon hanging in the air. Melissa was already there, sitting in a back booth with her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee. She wasn't drinking. She looked exactly like the porch camera image. Blonde hair, quick eyes, nervous posture. When Laura and Mike slid into the booth across from her, she glanced toward the door before leaning in. "I didn't know she was coming," Melissa said immediately. "Claire, I didn't even know her name until I saw the news." "Start from the beginning," Laura said. Melissa nodded, swallowing hard. "I've been seeing Jason for a few months. He told me he was single. Yesterday, I went to his place after work. We were," she hesitated, cheeks flushing, "on the couch when the door opened. She walked in with cupcakes." "And Jason's reaction?" "Mike asked. He freaked, told me to leave. I grabbed my purse and ran out the front door. I didn't look back." "You didn't hear anything after that?" Melissa bit her lip. "I heard yelling as I reached the sidewalk. Then maybe a thud. I thought it was just them arguing. I didn't think," she broke off, her voice cracking. "If I'd known, I would have stayed. I would have called 911. Laura studied her. "Melissa, Jason says you were with him all night. That true?" Her eyes widened. "No. After I left, I went straight to my sister's place in York. She'll tell you. That means he's using you as an alibi," Laura said. "And you can place him with the victim minutes before the attack." Melissa nodded miserably. "I guess so." She hesitated. "But you need to be careful. Jason, he has his temper. Once, I teased him about a text he got late at night, and he smashed a glass against the wall. I laughed it off, but," she shuddered, "it scared me." Laura took down every detail, then gave Melissa her card. "If he tries to contact you, call me right away." Back at the station, they dug deeper into Jason's past. They found restraining order filings from an ex-girlfriend 5 years ago, dismissed after she failed to appear in court. Another woman had accused him of assault, but dropped the charges within weeks. "Same pattern," Mike muttered. "They get scared or manipulated, and he walks." Laura's phone buzzed again, this time from the crime lab. "We processed the kitchen scene," the tech said. "We got partial prints from the drawer handle. They matched Jason Reed." "And the knife?" Laura asked. "Not recovered yet, but there's a trail of diluted blood out the back door leading toward the alley. We're checking the dumpsters now." By late afternoon, the detectives were back in the alley behind Jason's townhouse, combing through the trash bins. The summer heat made the air heavy, and the stench of rotting garbage clung to their clothes. Mike was the one who spotted it, a black plastic trash bag tied loosely at the top, sitting just inside the lid of a recycling bin. Inside, wrapped in 2 layers of kitchen towels, was a chef's knife, its handle slick with dried blood. Laura bagged it carefully. "If this comes back with Claire's blood and Jason's prints, we've got him." Mike looked up toward Jason's back porch. "Think he knows we're closing in?" Laura glanced at the townhouse windows, the curtains drawn tight. "If he doesn't now, he will soon." That evening, they stopped by the hospital. Claire was still unconscious, hooked up to machines that beeped steadily. A nurse adjusted the floor and whispered, "She's stable for now, but she's got a long fight ahead." Laura leaned close to Claire's ear. "We found the knife," she said softly, "and we're going to make him pay." As they left the room, Laura's phone buzzed again, this time with an unknown number. She answered, and Jason's voice came through, low and mocking. "You're wasting your time, detective." "She can't talk. She'll never talk." Laura froze, her pulse hammering. "Where are you, Jason?" But the line went dead. Laura didn't sleep that night. Jason's voice kept replaying in her mind, low and smug, like he was 2 steps ahead of them. She sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open, combing through every shred of Jason Reed's life. Phone records, credit history, traffic tickets. Anything that could show where he was hiding or who he might target next. By 7 a.m., she was back at the precinct. Mike was already there, hair damp from a quick shower, coffee in hand. "Any trace on the call?" she asked. "Burner phone." Mike said, "Bought at a gas station off Route 15 yesterday morning. No way to track it after that." Laura swore under her breath. "He's not just hiding. He's watching us." The breakthrough came mid-morning. The crime lab called with results on the knife. "Victim's blood and DNA match," the tech said. "And we have 2 clean latent prints on the handle, Jason Reed's. No other contributors." That was enough for an arrest warrant. They rolled out with a small tactical team, heading for Jason's townhouse. But when they got there, the blinds were still drawn, and the driveway was empty. The neighbor, an older man mowing his lawn, waved them over. "He left early this morning," the man said. "Had a duffel bag. Got in a cab." "Did he say where he was going?" The neighbor shook his head. "No, but he was on the phone, sounded heated, said something about finishing it." Laura's stomach turned. Finishing it could only mean one thing. Claire. They called the hospital immediately. "Security's on high alert," the charge nurse assured them. "No one gets in without clearance." But it wasn't enough for Laura. She and Mike drove straight there, flashing their badges at the entrance. They found 2 uniformed officers already stationed outside Claire's room. Still, Laura's gut told her Jason wouldn't just walk to the front door. She split off from Mike and circled to the back of the hospital, where delivery trucks came and went. That's when she saw him. Tall frame, dark hoodie despite the summer heat, walking fast toward the side entrance with a visitor's badge clipped to his pocket. "Jason Reed," she shouted. He froze for a half-second, then bolted. The chase was messy, through the loading dock, past startled delivery workers, around a corner where Laura nearly lost him. She caught sight of him darting into the stairwell and took the steps 2 at a time. Her lungs burned, but she kept going. When she rounded the next landing, Jason was only a few feet ahead. She lunged, catching his hoodie, and yanked him backward. He slammed into the wall, the badge flying from his pocket. "You're under arrest for the attempted murder of Claire Matthews," she barked, snapping the cuffs on him. Jason laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Attempted?" It sent a cold back in the interrogation room. Jason leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You don't have anything," he said. Laura dropped a photo of the knife on the table. "We have your prints, your DNA, an eyewitness who saw you with Claire minutes before the attack." He glanced at the photo, then back at her, unblinking. "She's not dead yet. You can't make me a killer if she dies on her own." Laura leaned in, her voice low. "She's stronger than you think. And when she wakes up, she's going to tell us everything." Jason smirked, but his eyes flickered, just once. That night, Laura went back to the hospital. Claire was still unconscious, but the nurse said she'd shown small signs of improvement. Her breathing more stable, her vitals a little stronger. Laura took a seat by her bed. "You're safe now," she whispered. "We've got him." But as she sat there, her phone buzzed. It was Mike. "Laura," he said, "you need to get back here. We just found something in Jason's storage unit, and it changes everything." The storage unit was on the edge of town, down a narrow service road lined with rusting chain-link fence. By the time Laura arrived, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the gravel lot. Mike was standing near Unit 47, his expression grim. "You're not going to like this," he said. Inside, the unit smelled of dust and oil. Cardboard boxes were stacked haphazardly against the back wall. A tarp lay crumpled in one corner, half covering a milk crate full of miscellaneous junk. But the real focus was a large plastic tub on the floor, lid snapped tight. Mike put on gloves and lifted it open. Inside were women's belongings, purses, scarves, a hairbrush with long strands of blonde hair tangled in the bristles. Some of the items were stained, others torn. Each had a small piece of masking tape, with dates scrawled on it in black marker. Claire's isn't the only name in here, Mike said, holding up a driver's license belonging to a woman named Emily Hines. She's from York County, reported missing 2 years ago. Laura felt the air thicken around her. And the others? For different names. All women. All Pennsylvania. A cold realization sank in. Jason wasn't just a man who snapped in a moment of rage. This was a predator with a pattern. They boxed up the evidence and transported it to the station. By the time the items were logged, it was after midnight. Serial offender, Mike muttered, rubbing his eyes. And if Claire dies, she won't just be another victim. She'll be the one who finally put him away. Laura nodded, but she also knew the clock was ticking. Jason had clammed up since his arrest, refusing to answer any questions without a lawyer. His smirk in the interrogation room hadn't faded, like he knew the case against him wasn't airtight without Claire's testimony. The next morning, Laura returned to the hospital. Claire's nurse met her at the door, eyes troubled. She had a rough night. Fever spiked. The doctors are worried about infection. Laura's chest tightened. Is she awake? The nurse shook her head. Not yet. Laura stepped inside the room anyway, sitting in a chair by Claire's bed. You can do this, she whispered. We need you. Back at the station, the DA's office reviewed their evidence. The knife was strong. Melissa Carter's testimony put Jason at the scene. The storage unit linked him to other possible crimes. But without Claire's direct statement, the defense could argue reasonable doubt that someone else entered after Melissa left. Laura paced the hallway, frustrated. We have to find another angle, something that ties him to the attack beyond question. Mike was scrolling through crime scene photos when he froze. Wait, look at this. It was a shot of the kitchen counter. Specifically, the glass of water Jason had poured before the attack. You see the smear on the rim? Mike said, lab confirmed, it's Claire's blood, which means the glass was poured after he'd already injured her. Laura's eyes lit up. That kills any self-defense claim. He attacked, paused to get water, and went back to finish. They were still celebrating the find when a call came in from a hospital. You need to get here, the doctor said urgently. Claire's condition has changed, and it's not good. Laura's tires squealed into the hospital parking lot. She barely remembered the drive, only the pounding in her chest and the doctor's urgent voice echoing in her ears. On the intensive care floor, the air was thick with the hum of machines. Claire's room was swarming with nurses, one of them adjusting her ventilator, while another injected medication into her fore. The doctor spotted Laura in the doorway and hurried over. She's septic, he said, voice low but firm. The infection spread fast. Her blood pressure's unstable. If we can't turn this around in the next 12 hours, he trailed off, letting the unspoken end hang heavy. Laura stepped inside. Claire's skin was flush with fever, her breasts shallow beneath the mask. Laura took her hand gently. It's Detective Bennett, she said. If you can hear me, just hang on. Please. The heart monitor beeped steadily, almost like it was answering her. Downstairs, Mike was waiting by the vending machines. His face was grim. I called the DA, he said. They're willing to push forward with what we've got, but if Jason's defense lawyer pokes enough holes, we risk him walking. We need Claire's voice, Laura. Laura nodded, eyes distant. Then we keep her safe until she can give it. Mike's brow furrowed. About that, hospital security caught a guy in the parking lot about an hour ago, hanging around near the loading dock. Said he was a delivery driver, but couldn't produce paperwork. They ran him off. Her jaw tightened. You think Jason sent someone? I think he's desperate. If he's got a pattern like that storage unit suggests, he knows more victims could come forward if we dig deeper. They doubled the security detail outside Claire's room. 2 officers on the door, 1 patrolling the hall. Laura arranged for a camera feed into the station's monitor bank. She wasn't leaving this one to chance. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling Jason was maneuvering something from inside his holding cell. That afternoon, she went to see him. Jason was slouched in his chair, an untouched lunch tray in front of him. He smirked when she entered. Detective Bennett. He said like they were old friends. How's Claire? Fighting, Laura said flatly. And she's going to win. Jason leaned back, crossing his arms. She's weak. They all are. That's why they come to me in the first place. Laura's stomach turned, but she kept her voice even. You're done, Jason. We have the knife, your prints, your DNA. The DA's moving forward. He chuckled. Without her testimony? Good luck. And when I'm out, maybe I'll pay Melissa a visit. Her fist tightened at her sides. You so much as say her name again, and I'll make sure you never see daylight. Jason smiled like he'd won something just by getting under her skin. That night, Laura was back at her desk when a hospital call came in. Urgent. It's Claire, the nurse said. She woke up. Laura was out the door before the phone hit the receiver. When she arrived, Claire was propped up slightly in bed, pale and trembling but awake. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Detective. Laura took her hand. I'm here. Tears welled in Claire's eyes. It was Jason. He came at me with a knife. I tried to run. He wouldn't stop. Laura's throat tightened. Can you give a statement? Claire nodded weakly. I'll do whatever it takes to put him away. Laura called Mike and the DA from the hallway, adrenaline flooding her veins. We've got it, she said. Her statement on record. He's finished. But before she could hang up, a commotion broke out at the far end of the hall. Shouting, running footsteps. One of the uniformed officers sprinted past her toward the elevators. Security breach, someone yelled. Laura sprinted down the hall, her hand already on her sidearm. The shouting was louder now, a mix of nurses' voices and the thud of hurried footsteps. 2 security officers barreled past her, but Laura didn't slow. She needed to get to Claire's room. When she rounded the corner, the door was wide open. One of the officers assigned to guard the room was slumped against the wall, clutching his shoulder where a knife wound oozed through his uniform. Inside, a man in a hospital orderly's uniform stood over Claire's bed, a pillow clutched in his hands. Put it down. Laura barked. The man froze, then turned. His cap slipped just enough to reveal his face. One of Jason's known associates, a name Laura had seen in old bar fight reports. Rick Malloy. She's the reason he's going away, Rick snarled. She doesn't make it. He walks. Laura stepped forward, gun steady. If you so much as twitch, I swear you'll never leave this room breathing. Rick hesitated, eyes darting toward the window, maybe thinking about making a run for it. But the sound of boots pounding the hallway behind Laura made his shoulder sag. He dropped the pillow, hands going up. 2 uniforms rushed in, cuffing him and hauling him out. Laura went straight to Claire's side. The nurses were already swarming in, checking vitals, adjusting her oxygen. You okay? Laura asked softly. Claire nodded, though her eyes were glassy. He said Jason told him to finish it. That's over now, Laura said. No one's getting near you again. With Rick in custody, the DA's case became airtight. Between Claire's sworn statement, the knife with Jason's prints, Melissa Carter's testimony, and now a conspiracy to murder charge involving Rick, there was nowhere left for Jason to hide. The trial drew local media. The courtroom was packed the day Claire testified. She walked in slowly, still thin from her hospital stay, but her voice was clear when she pointed at Jason and said, "That man tried to kill me." Melissa took the stand next, confirming Jason's lies about the night of the attack. The prosecution laid out the content of the storage unit, suggesting Jason had harmed other women who'd never lived to tell their stories. The defense tried to paint him as a man pushed into a moment of passion, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury took less than 4 hours to return a verdict, guilty on all counts. Sentencing day was quiet. Jason sat without expression as the judge handed down life in prison without the possibility of parole. When he was led away, Claire let out a shaky breath she'd been holding for months. Outside the courthouse, Laura walked with her to the waiting car. You did it, Laura said. No, Claire replied. We did. You didn't give up on me. Laura smiled faintly. You were worth fighting for. Weeks later, Laura got a small box in the mail. Inside was one perfect red velvet cupcake, wrapped carefully in wax paper, and a note in Claire's neat handwriting. For the detective who brought me back my life. Laura read it twice, then set the note on her desk where she could see it every day. A reminder that justice wasn't just about locking someone away, but about making sure the people who'd been silenced could finally speak again. And this time, Jason Reed would never hurt anyone else.